and I won't back down. Hey, baby, there ain't no easy way out.
Hey everybody, thanks so much for joining us right here on The Right View. Got a lot of tea for you tonight, but before we start, I want to tell you about Golden Revive Plus. If you suffer from chronic pain, listen up. Here's a way to help you get real relief. As a fitness fanatic, I understand that recovery is just as important as the workout itself. But whether you're recovering from an injury or just looking for everyday relief from pain in your joints and muscles, nerve pain, fibrosis, and inflammation, I recommend Golden Revive Plus from Up Wellness. This advanced all-natural formula combines 6 powerful anti-inflammatory ingredients, including a proprietary turmeric extract that's 200 times stronger than raw turmeric. All of this to address the root cause of your pain, reducing scarring, swelling, and tissue damage, using the healing powers of nature to help your body heal itself. Formulated by husband and wife team Doctors Josh and Amanda Levitt, Golden Revive Plus gives you real pain relief and better range of motion, plus better heart, eye, and brain health. Join the over 300,000 Americans who are already using Golden Revive Plus to get and stay pain-free. For a limited time, you can try Golden Revive Plus for 30% off at goldenrevive.com. Just use promo code Trump at checkout. We are joined by media analyst Stephanie Hamill. Welcome back, Stephanie, as well as Univision political analyst Vianca Rodriguez. Ladies, welcome to the show. Vianca, happy belated birthday. We know you just had a birthday, and we love celebrating people here at The Right View. I'll tell you who's not celebrating right now are Democrats. They are terrified about Joe Biden now as their candidate for president of the United States. Everybody's talking about it. It's the one thing everybody continues to actually agree on, is that there's a major problem with Joe Biden. And Vianca, the funny thing to me is that there is now this idea that is emerging as to the real power behind Joe Biden. Top Democrats are so alarmed by Biden's ailing health that some fear a shadowy cabal is keeping him in power so they can pull the levers behind the scenes. This is a quote from a recent article by Olivia Nuzzi, I think is her name, with New York Magazine. She reported about this initially. And I think the funniest part to me is, and she highlights this, the irony that this same theory was espoused, as she puts it, by many on the MAGA right, with Donald Trump himself previously alleging that former President Barack Obama is the real power behind the Biden White House. So now people have, Vianca, seen Joe Biden really in his full capacity at that debate. Everybody was horrified by what they saw. And nothing has really gone to make them feel that much better. He tried to do a teleprompter speech the day after, didn't really hit, doesn't do anything for anybody. Nobody feels better about it. And so now you have all these major Democrats who are coming out and they're saying, well, wait a minute, there must be someone else in charge of the country. And I guess my response to them, Vianca, I would love yours, but my response is like, yeah, you think so? Because nobody really believes that Joe Biden is doing it. What do you think, Vianca?
I agree 100%. I think that this is Barack Obama's third term, basically. This is his indirect, unofficial third term that he had always wanted, clearly, because Joe Biden is just not there. He hasn't been there. And I'm not saying just this year alone. I mean, we have been talking about this since the last election, since at least 2019. Like, there was already a noticeable cognitive decline in him. But now it's just way more noticeable, obviously, because he's aging a lot faster. And I'm not a health expert by any means, but I do know what the signs and symptoms of dementia are. And I feel like it's no coincidence that a lot of his symptoms really, really mirror those of the ones that my dad, unfortunately, had passed away from. So I don't understand really like what's going on, like what's in their head. But I do think that it's not only Barack Obama, but it's also his wife, Jill Biden. She did recently a Vogue cover, and you could very clearly tell that she has this outfit and this very serious face, like just the way that she's portraying herself. It makes her seem very indirectly presidential. And it's very bizarre because, one, these are people that we didn't elect directly. These are unelected bureaucrats that are basically running the government and our White House right now. And two, it's almost like every single conspiracy theory that we've been accused of for many years, I mean, they're just basically unfolding right in front of our eyes. And anybody that wants to pretend otherwise it's just right now, like literally just trying to pretend like this is not what's happening. And I mean, I don't know what else to say to that, right? Like at this point, it's just so obvious that it's not Joe Biden who's really in charge.
Yeah, I mean, that's the funny thing, Stephanie, is they say that the difference between reality and a conspiracy theory is 6 months, right? Give it 6 months for some like tinfoil hat conspiracy theory that Republicans, conservatives have, and it will probably be coming true. And we've seen it happen time and time again. So the fact that you now have Democrats who are coming out and saying, wait a minute, something is off here. Who's running the country? There are also reports, Stephanie, I found this really shocking, that Joe Biden needs a teleprompter, even at small, intimate gatherings, like a 50-person fundraiser, for example, that he recently had, I believe, in New Jersey. Just to give people some perspective, I've gone to many an intimate fundraiser with my father-in-law, and there is no need for a teleprompter. You speak off the cuff. He invites people, and he always will call me or whoever from the family or from the campaign or the RNC who's there to come up and say a few words as well. You just speak off the cuff. You don't need a teleprompter for that. That is shocking to me. One diehard Democrat was stunned to realize Biden was too frail to make it through an entire White House reception, Nuzzi said. The unnamed bigwig is then said to have realized that it may have been premature to dismiss theories about Biden's fitness for office as right-wing propaganda, Stephanie. It's really incredible to see the walls caving in on Joe Biden. Those are the terms that Democrats like to say about Donald Trump. And I think that the vibe that I'm getting, and I'd love your take on this, Stephanie, is that at this point, they're stuck right now, the Democrats, right? They can't fully go all in on Joe Biden because everyone is seeing how far gone he is. They can't transfer the money to any other candidate that they've raised. I think it's $240 million the Biden-Harris campaign has raised, except for Kamala Harris, who none of them want at the top of the ticket. And at the same time, it really does seem like the media is now all in on calling out Joe Biden and how bad he really is for the country. So what are they going to do, Stephanie? How do you see this happening and working out?
There's so much to unpack there. I'm just like, my head is exploding over everything that's happened since that disastrous debate night. Let me respond to your teleprompter point, which is, I've been to political events since I was in college, and I've never seen a speaker use a teleprompter to give a speech to a small room or even a room of a few hundred people. So that's a problem. Number two, the media, I mean, it's just been like a complete and total circus. So we have some of the sycophants who are still defending Biden no matter what. They're pretending everything was fine. It was just a bad night, but look how great his policies are. Well, that's the problem. The policies aren't good. And it wasn't just one bad night. This was supposed to be the night to show us that he is mentally capable of running this country. And he had so many days at Camp David to prove this point, to work on it. And he came and delivered nothing, a failing grade on that debate night performance. So it is terrifying to think what you guys were talking about, that there's a cabal and a group of people running the country behind Biden. But the other option is a man who has dementia-like behavior running the country. So like, either option's not good for America. I mean, it is totally terrifying to think that this man is in charge. This is the man with the nuclear board. This is the man who doesn't want to do events and stuff after like 4 p.m. because he's Sleepy Joe and doesn't want to be bothered before 10 a.m. What about if there's a crisis, or if world leaders are trying to reach Joe Biden? Well, he's sleeping. It's nap time. Sorry, can't bother the president. So it's all bad options all around. And this ABC interview that I feel bad if anyone interrupted their 4th of July weekend to actually watch it, because it was so cringe and painful to watch. I was actually expecting it to be a little bit stronger. I would suspect that George Slopanopoulos probably gave Biden the questions in advance. Wouldn't be surprised. This is a Democratic operative who was a Clinton communications director, Democrat sycophant for, decades. Okay. So, he did give him tough questions, but Biden probably had a lot of time to prepare for that. And this is the interview that was supposed to bring it home and make his Democratic supporters believe and trust in him. And I haven't heard anyone say that this moved the needle at all for them. The conversation between the two was just ludicrous in general. We had George Stephanopoulos asking him if he's mentally okay to run the country. I mean, this is where we're at. Not a good place.
Yeah, it did not go to alleviate anyone's fears. I think, in fact, there was one Democrat donor who described that this was a pre-taped interview, by the way. So let's start there. They pre-taped it because anything live, you have no control over what happens. If it's pre-taped, then you can like mess around with it a little bit, make sure that Joe Biden looks as well as and as sane and as capable as possible. Although it didn't go well. One of the Democrat donors said that this was a, quote, huge opportunity missed, and noted that Biden is going down like Davy Crockett. Crockett, just as so everybody understands what this means, was also known as the king of the wild frontier, and he participated in the Texas Revolution in 1836 and died against the Mexican army as a last stand. So basically, Joe Biden is just like, they're willing to just sink him. Like, really, he's going to hold out until the very end. And Vianca, that's kind of the concern for me, is if you're a person who wants to ensure the best possible thing for the country, and you are someone who is surrounding Joe Biden, say like Jill Biden, say like Hunter Biden, some of these people who he supposedly is really responsive to when they give him sort of their opinions and their thoughts on things. It sounds like it's Joe and Jill against the world. She's lashing out, by the way, at anyone who is criticizing Joe Biden and saying that he shouldn't run for president. But the responsible thing as it relates to the country and the rest of the world is if someone really doesn't have all their faculties about them and they don't have the ability to do this job, then step aside and let someone who actually is capable of doing it do the job. And I think the idea that he's just going to go hard until the very end, like, this is not the Navy SEALs, okay? This is President of the United States. Different animals, totally different jobs. And I think that's what's been very concerning to a lot of people. Another great quote from that, or one of the back and forths, is that Stephanopoulos asked Joe Biden, did you watch the debate? Did you go back and watch it? He goes, I don't think I did. No. You don't think you did either?
Yeah.
You did?
I mean, I doubt he even remembers that he had a debate.
Oh.
It's like, at this point, it's pathetic. It's tragic too, because this is something that we've never seen before happen in this country. And the fact that it's happening now at a time when we need more leadership than ever, and we need an actual like president that's willing to put in the fight, not just nationally against these cartels and these terrorists that have been caught at the border, but also at an international level. Like, we have all these wars and all these conflicts that we didn't have when Donald Trump was president. That's just a fact. And any Democrat that otherwise claims, no, I'd rather have the old senile man in the White House instead of a convicted felon. I mean, number one, we already know that the only reason that Donald Trump is convicted at this point is because he had a jury of Joe Biden's own peers convict him. So this is automatically what one would consider a political prosecution. And number two, the same thing could probably happen to him in reverse. And that's the thing that upsets me the most, is that these people, especially the liberals, like, they only think about the short term power and the control and everything. They don't think about the long term, the damage to the credibility of our institutions that this has already caused, the damage in itself to the seriousness of what it means to be president of this country. And that's just, I mean, I feel like at this point, the only reason why Jill Biden would continue to engage in what I would consider elder abuse, because it's not that I have complete pity of the man, but at this point, like, you can very well tell that no matter what you speak to him, it feels different, right? Like,
you feel sorry for him. You feel sorry for him. You shouldn't feel sorry for the president of the United States. This is a highly important position. I would argue the most important in the entire world.
Do you guys remember that story that went viral of the Brazilian woman who like rolled in a dead body to sign over a loan at the bank? That is like
Yes.
Dr. Jill Biden with Joe Biden right now. I mean, that
Oh,
is like a
Jesus.
perfect analogy
That's
of what's going on here. You guys remember that
That's a
You're
happened in
not
April,
far
right?
off, Stephanie. You're
No.
not far off because that's
You know,
what's
if Dr. Joe Biden stepped in and was like, you know what, Joe, you had a good run, let's pass the baton, he would. Dr. Jill Biden loves the spotlight. It's very obvious. She's eager to pose for Vogue magazine, which again was not offered to the beautiful First Lady Melania Trump, which is a total
don't
scam,
offer
by
it
the
to
way.
a former model. Don't
Yeah,
offer it to her.
Yeah.
literally the most elegant woman on
Are
the
you
planet,
kidding?
by the
Yeah.
way.
I couldn't think
Uh,
of a better cover model for every one of these magazines than Melania Trump. But don't put her on the cover of any
Yeah.
magazines. It's absurd. It's ridiculous. And by the way, I follow Vogue magazine on Instagram, and I always go under and look at the comments. People are furious with the kind of crap they've been pumping out. Obviously, this cover was a bridge too far for a lot of people, but prior to that, they have been highly political, obviously leaning left, Vogue magazine. So I don't know what their plan or their goals are over there.
Dr. Jill Biden doesn't want to give away the spotlight. She likes it. And it's obvious that she is playing a major role in this administration. And the problem is nobody voted for her. Right.
Yeah,
This is
that's a problem.
yeah,
That's
it's
a
a
big
huge problem. The Democrats didn't vote for her. We didn't vote for her. So I think that she's a major player in this. And then we heard the reports that Hunter Biden is like in the White House after the debate, in the inner close circle. And, it's ironic and also hypocritical because they're worried about Trump being a convicted felon. Yeah, well, they weaponize the government against him, as Bianca pointed out. But Hunter Biden is the actual convicted felon. And, that didn't even scratch the surface on the Hunter Biden laptop stuff relating him back to the big guy, by the way.
Those are the major problems, obviously.
Yeah, this talking point that Trump's a convicted felon, nobody cares. It's a yawn. And that's why people continue to pour in the millions and hundreds of millions of dollars to Trump's campaign, and why his polling continues to go up, because they know it's a fraud.
And we still don't know who's at fault for that cocaine at the White House.
No, yeah, don't hold your breath on that, Bianca. I feel like we're never going to get an answer to that. But anyone's guess is as good as mine. We won't ask a lot of questions. I do wonder, who do you guys think advised Joe Biden on the spray tan? Let me start by saying this. I love a good spray tan. Don't kid yourself. If you want to offer one to me, I'm always available for that. Everyone looks better with the tan. Just ask Donald Trump. He has never shied away from being tan himself. But the 180-degree difference, almost like you went from this kind of like really feeble, pale looking Joe Biden on the debate stage to basically like 24 hours later, they had him like really tanned up, almost like aggressively tanned up. And he's still trying to sport it out there. Stephanie, I know we kind of like before the show touched on this. What do you think the story is with this spray tan? Do you think that was one of Jill's ideas?
So first of all, I will say that everyone looks better tan. That's a fact.
Everyone looks better tan.
Real
tan,
tan,
you'll never
spray
convince me
tan,
otherwise.
self-tanner.
Yeah.
I'm Hispanic, so this is my color all year round. But when I do lay out in the sun and get tan, I appreciate that. As for Joe Biden and who decided to give him some advice in getting a spray tan, he looked horrible on debate night, like, of course. And then that's what people were saying. So then all of a sudden he comes out like a dusty Cheeto, and we're like supposed to not be petty and not talk about it because, the left, their favorite thing is to make fun of Trump for his tan. Well, now they have an orange man, and he's actually bad in crushing the economy. So it's like you can't ignore it. And it's not just Republicans or conservatives who are talking about it. Newsweek did an article on Biden's tan. So they can tan him up as much as they want, but that's not going to change what's happened over the past, week or since the debate. I mean, the cognitive decline is there, and no tan is going to erase that.
It's funny because Bianca, it sort of feels like they're like, wait, what's been working for Donald Trump? Try it this way, Joe. No, wait, that's not working. Somebody get a spray tanner in here. They're just like, they're pulling out all the stops. They're doing whatever they can to help this guy. And obviously it's not working. It's gotten so bad that they have now had to give the questions. I mean, we talked about the Stephanopoulos interview, obviously this ABC News interview. However, there were 2 radio interviews, and I got to give CNN a lot of credit. They had both of these radio hosts on CNN to talk about the fact that the Biden campaign actually gave them the questions beforehand. One of the radio hosts, this is in Philadelphia, said that she got a list of 8 questions directly from the Biden campaign in advance of her interview with Joe Biden. And one of the craziest parts of it is that it didn't even help Joe Biden. Like, he then got on there and just made a complete disaster of things. One of the things he did, bizarrely claiming that he was proud to be the first Black woman to serve with a Black president. And he also made another claim saying, I'm the first president that got elected statewide in the state of Delaware when I was a kid. And then he went on to do another one in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and they gave him these same softball questions. These are like basic questions, Vianca, like, why is this election important? Why should you remain president? And this is the kind of stuff that then he came out with. They're not even helping him when they're trying to help him, whether it's the spray tan or the pre-planned questions. Not working.
No, it's crazy. I mean, there's nothing that they can do at this point to hide the fact that everybody already knows that he's just not there. I mean, it's insane. Like, I almost feel like at any moment he's probably going to say something that he shouldn't because of probably all this trauma and this built up, all these secrets and lies that he's probably had to keep up for decades. He's probably going to have to spill something controversial at some point. There's a word for that. There's a psychological term for that I can't remember right now, but I think it's just crazy as well that no matter what they do, they're giving him all these preset questions. They have everything basically written down for him. All he has to do is repeat everything that all of his aides are writing out for him. And it's insane that he doesn't even get to give a solid answer on one single question. He'll start talking about something and then he'll trail off into something completely different, or he'll just completely lose his train of thought. And you'll see him kind of like daze off, like looking into space like this, like he was looking at the debate at not even at Trump. I don't even think he would remember he was at that debate at certain points. And I think you could tell also that Donald Trump, it got to a point where he was in a way kind of feeling pity for him as well and thought, I can't even beat the dude because he's already beating himself. There's nothing else I have to do on top of that. And I think that's great for us as a party. And right now, considering, unfortunately, I don't even know how at this point it's still such a tight matchup and it's almost tied in a lot of these polls. I blame it on a lot of people as well, but also some of the pollsters and the way that they frame these questions and the type of people that they ask. But still, it's something incredible where when you still see that if we're so tight in this race, like everything counts. And I'm really, really hoping. I mean, I've at least had some conversations with some friends and other people that are from Puerto Rico that they never really typically liked Donald Trump, but they're considering now for the first time ever voting for him. And that for me means the world, because I feel like on one hand, like we've been working really hard to at least show the voters, what's up, what's at stake, and what should really matter for them. But at the same time, they're also just realizing on their own that we have somebody that's just mentally and physically unfit for office. And at this point, I think that if Jill Biden's going to continue pushing for her husband to be there and to become this huge laughingstock of the world, then we're going to have to figure something else out, because while they're busy trying to keep control and power and this corruption that they have going on behind the scenes, we have to continue also pushing for the real work to be done. And if that means having to invoke some sort of impeachment and the 25th Amendment against this guy, then I'm hoping Republicans are going to have to do that, because we have to do something, I think, or let it play out and then let him continue converting this country into the huge laughingstock of the world.
Oh, you might have heard Mike Lindell and MyPillow no longer have the support of their box stores or shopping channels the way they used to. They've been part of cancel culture, so they want to pass the savings directly on to you by having a $25 extravaganza. When Mike started MyPillow, it was just a one-product company. With the help of his dedicated employees, they now have hundreds of products, some you may not even know about. To get the word out, I want to invite my listeners to check out their $25 extravaganza. 2-pack multi-use MyPillows, just $25. MyPillow sandals, $25. Their 6-pack towel sets, $25. Brand new 4-pack dish towels, you guessed it, just $25. For the first time ever, the premium MyPillows with all new Giza fabric, just $25. Orders over $75 will receive free shipping. This amazing offer won't last long. Go to mypillow.com and use promo code Trump or call 800-624-3945 today. It's so scary. And I mean, I think the worst part is it's not like this election is tomorrow and the inauguration is the next day. We have until November to get to the election. And then even after Donald Trump is reelected, which I believe will happen, then we have to wait till January 20th of next year to actually inaugurate him. That's a long time. That is a lot of time for something bad to happen. And Vianca, I love to hear about the people who were either very much against Donald Trump now coming around, or at least kind of opening up and saying, I don't know, maybe I missed something. Maybe I was misled here. Because I think oftentimes those people who were not on board, who were never part of the conservative movement, or, you know, never thought of themselves as Trump voters or conservatives prior, now once they see what has been going on, you don't unsee it. And I think oftentimes those are the people who come over and are the most hardcore in terms of, you know, wanting Donald Trump to be in office, because they're like, wait a minute, you tricked me for this long. You lied to me about the Charlottesville hoax. You lied to me about Trump and his campaign colluding with Russia. You lied to me about the Hunter Biden laptop story. Once people see all of the lies they've been fed specifically about Donald Trump, and specifically so that Democrats could retain power, that is very upsetting to people. People don't like to feel like they got played, like they got tricked or duped. And once they get that, once they see that that's what's been happening, man, are they never going back to the other side. So these Democrats have a big problem on their hands. And forget about just Joe Biden. There are so many Democrats who are continuing to make it hard for people to vote for this party. Look no further than New York City, right here, the skyline behind me. New York City, we heard back a while ago, about 6 months ago, Stephanie, that Eric Adams was starting a program to hand out debit cards to illegal immigrants who have come to New York City. We know that it's costing $12 billion just to house these people over the course of 3 years in New York City. This is such a burden on the taxpayers of New York, who already pay exorbitant amounts of money in terms of their taxes. Mayor Adams is now expanding his program that rewards newly arrived migrants with preloaded debit cards for food paid by New Yorkers who remain some of the most tax-burdened residents in the United States. So the $53 million program he originally had in place took care of about 500 families, Stephanie. If you do the math on that, that is $106,000 per family. And let me remind everyone, the average salary in the country is around $59,000. So just think about the math there and how all that works out. I don't get it. 56%, by the way, of New Yorkers live near the poverty line. He's now expanding this program from taking care of 500 families to somewhere around 7,000 families. And I think this is something that the people of New York probably look at and they say, let me get this straight. I'm living in a city that is less safe. I'm living in a city where we have taken a lot of the felonies and converted them and demoted them down to misdemeanors so that these criminals can just run rampant in the streets. You can't even go in and get a stick of deodorant because it's locked behind plexiglass. I don't feel safe in my city. Everything is more expensive. And now people who broke our laws to come here illegally are now going to be taken care of to the tune of $106,000 per family, if you want to look at it like that, for these debit cards. Obviously, it doesn't exactly work out like that. But my whole point is, we are living in a time where it's very hard for people who are here as legal citizens, who are paying into our tax system and doing everything the right way just to make ends meet. And here we are rewarding more of them for coming here. It is really upsetting a lot of people, Stephanie.
It's a total slap in the face for the American taxpayer that they're doing this for people who are entering the country illegally. They're breaking our laws. I think about the legal immigrants who are here. I mean, I think of my family and Hispanics that I know. They're outraged that they're allowing this to happen. I mean, and that's why you've seen a shift when it comes to support for Trump among Latinos, because they don't support this either. There's a right way to do things. We have a system in place, and we're the most generous country when it comes to visas and welcoming people here. But it is a big issue when we have the Democratic Party who seems to favor illegal immigrants over Americans. We have veterans on the street. We have Americans who are struggling, Americans who are being crushed by the Biden economy. And we're all being pushed aside for illegal immigrants. They're making space for them. And obviously, there are political reasons and theories for this, but it's just not right. And there is going to be a backlash, and I think we'll see it at the polls.
Yeah, and the other thing that they're doing too, Vianca, is aside from the debit cards, because you have so many migrants housed in the hotels, Eric Adams has imposed a widespread migrant hotel policy where hotels are paid by the city's taxpayers, of course, for these migrants. And as a result, more than 16,000 hotel rooms across New York City are being occupied by illegal immigrants. And this then drives up the actual room prices of hotels in the rest of the city. And prices right now are more expensive in New York City if you want to go get a hotel room than they have really ever been. So you think about, how does New York make its money? There are a lot of tourists who come to New York, but they look at these hotel prices. They're like, I don't know if I can afford to go visit New York. I'm just going to skip it. This sort of policy is continuing to hurt these cities. Likewise, you have Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, who recently announced the opening of more migrant shelters ahead of the DNC. I'll remind everybody, the DNC is taking place in Chicago. And the residents of these areas in Chicago where they're moving the migrant shelters, so they're taking them away, just so we're clear, from where the convention is going to be held. Anything on the outskirts of that, they're saying, you know what? Let's get that out of here. We don't want people to look at that when they come to this convention. They're moving it out. You have lawmakers upset in the city of Chicago. You have residents upset. This is how one of the residents described some of these shelters. She said they smoked weed 24/7. They peed on the trees in the park, had sex in the park in front of kids. It was chaotic. I think it's a huge mistake for Pritzker to open more shelters. Some of these people don't have any respect for the neighborhoods they are staying in. Others noted that the new shelters also have a strategic function because they are at some of the farthest points away from the facility where the DNC will be held. Any coincidence there, you think, Vianca?
I think you were mentioning something about the neighbors, and I kept thinking about that Bible verse that talks about, loving thy neighbor. And I think that there's no better way to love thy neighbor than to ensure first the safety and security of this country. And that's not at all what's happening with the Democrat leadership. And the fact that they're looking to expand all these powers and all these things that they're going to be giving to the migrants that are present illegally. I think it is I agree with Stephanie, it is such a slap in the face and such a disrespect to the loyalty and to the hardworking citizens of this country that are here legally. And I'm talking about those that were US born, but also those that immigrated legally, a lot of my friends and people that I know. I mean, it's like, I understand that they're coming, a lot of these people from really, really complicated conflicts and economic disasters in their home countries. But at the same time, I don't think it still justifies doing things the way that they're doing. And at the same time, I'm not saying that they're all the same, but there are just bands of criminals and cartels that are taking advantage of the desperation of these individuals and also sneaking themselves in and doing the atrocities that we're seeing them commit in all of these cities. And it's because we have such a big, an avalanche of migrants coming in on a daily basis. And it's a record that we're breaking constantly that was never seen before until Joe Biden came into the White House. It's very, very difficult right now for Border Patrol and for our agents to be able to vet and properly vet these individuals to make sure that they don't have any criminal records. We already don't have a good relationship with some of the countries like Venezuela, for instance. We're obviously not on speaking terms with a dictator, and I hope we don't. But at the same time, Joe Biden seems to be around the corner reconsidering that idea, and that's very concerning. But this is just, it's a problem. I don't think that we're seeing any benefit out of this whole context there's costs and there's benefits, and I'm definitely seeing a lot more of the costs being outweighing these sort of benefits for us. They're not respecting our rule of law. They're not coming here with this purpose of wanting to improve their own livelihoods. If anything, they're just bringing everybody else down along with them. And it's concerning and it's unfair to, just like what Stephanie was mentioning, to the veterans and the homeless individuals, like homeless veterans that are right now on the streets still looking every single day for a place to stay, for a place to at least receive them. And these are people that literally sacrifice themselves for this country. It's completely unfair and it's disgusting, but this is what the Democrats like promote. And then the Republicans obviously want to do something about it, but we're seeing them constantly present obstacles to us in Congress, and then they want to shift the blame on us. And I think it's pathetic at this point.
Well,
Yeah,
Lara, I wanted to point out a couple things is that this influx of migrants hurts the middle class and lower income families the most, because now they're competing for jobs, they're competing for resources. So it's not like a net positive on this country. And as Vianca pointed out, we have compassion, and there's a reason why people want to come here, because this is the greatest country on earth, right? But also other countries need to share the burden of an influx of migrants. I don't know why the United States of America is expected to just take everyone in, not vet them, be like totally fine with criminals coming through and letting the cartels run amok. And so, that part of the conversation's always left out. And we didn't even get into the fentanyl crisis and the drugs that are pouring across the border. And
the terrorists coming over. Yeah, the terrorists coming over. Look, all you need is one person with bad intentions to do something really awful here in this country. And make no mistake, look, ISIS is back up and running. Donald Trump eradicated ISIS. They're back now, thanks to Joe Biden, thanks to the way we left Afghanistan, thanks to us leaving $80 billion worth of military equipment in the Middle East, abandoning Bagram Air Force Base, the whole thing. We all know how bad that was. Now you have people, I think there were 50 known ISIS sympathizers just running around the country. Nobody really knows where they are. Nobody knows what's happening with them. And I would suspect that you are going to see something really bad happen as a result of that. I think it was the FBI director himself who said, look, we have never seen a threat level as high as we are right now in this country, except back to September 11th, 2001. Things are very upsetting around the world. You've got, wars in the Middle East. You've got a war in Europe. You have ISIS on the rise. You have an open border pouring in here. You've got a president who does not look like we've all gone over how bad that is. No one believes Joe Biden is going to do anything really aggressive if necessary. And so now's the time. I suspect some of these people who want to do bad things to Americans would take the opportunity to do so. It's awful. Just to go back very quickly to New York City, I was very hopeful when Eric Adams was elected as a former law enforcement officer that this would be a guy who would say, you know what, we're going to crack down on crime. And in fact, I think he kind of ran on a platform like that. You also have to look at the district attorney, Alvin Bragg, who we know has been spending his time, energy, and resources on trying to, politically go after Donald Trump. This was, as Vianca, I think you said it earlier, a political prosecution, persecution, you could even say. And he demoted all of those crimes from felonies to misdemeanors. And it's not safe in the city of New York. Ask anyone who lives there right now. It's not a great place to be. You have a situation where you have New York City with this string of robberies at very high-end establishments. These are restaurants frequented by celebrities, sports figures, and they're all seeming to follow a similar pattern. Listen to this. The robberies follow a similar pattern. Surveillance video footage and witness interviews revealed. Two men, this is how it always goes down, arrive at a glittering restaurant with one carrying a gun. They steal belongings from restaurant patrons and then flee either on a moped or dirt bike. In each case, the armed thieves have stolen luxury watches from patrons, including one that was worth $100,000, according to authorities. Vianca, there has not been a single arrest in these cases. And why not? Why wouldn't these people try it right now? You had to take money away from the New York City Police Department in order to pay for the illegal immigrants they're having to house and feed and all of those things, they have a lot fewer officers. Why are these officers going to go out of their way to try and go after some guys? Obviously, one of them has a gun. Whenever they know that Alvin Bragg's policies are just going to kick them back on the street the next day. What are we doing here? And when does somebody, I am wondering, when is it that the people who are voting in the city of New York realize you're voting for these policies, you're voting for this chaos, you're voting for this crime, Vianca? I hope that if there's ever a time people could wake up and actually realize what's going on. You think it might be 2024? Have we gone far enough in the wrong direction, do you think?
I mean, for me, it's an easy answer, but unfortunately for a lot of them, I feel like they're stuck in this bubble that they're being convinced of this fear and this rhetoric that the Democrats have had such control over for so long, that unfortunately, like, they've been able to be convinced of those lies. And I do think that there's a change that's slowly but surely happening in the city of New York and in New York as a whole. I don't know if that's going to happen by this upcoming election. I would love for that to be the case. But I do think that now more than ever, I mean, there's been Republicans that have said, no, New York is a lost cause, just like California. But I don't believe in that, because I do think that all of these states are able to transform as long as we continue to push the right message to them. There's a lot of other people, a lot of voters that feel like they have to hide their true, beliefs and the way that they feel about certain things just because they're surrounded by a bunch of liberals that think they're super smart and that they know everything. But at the same time, they continue to, like you pointed out, ironically vote for the same policies that are constantly keeping a lot of people on, under poverty, or even worsening their poor circumstances, not letting them get ahead in life. And you were also mentioning, the budget. I agree. It's not like there's no money to be able to go after these criminals. It's the fact that they're reportioning and just restructuring all this budget to go towards things that are not priorities, or that shouldn't be the priority in these cities. And it's really unfortunate, because there's also a loophole that I recently discovered with these motorcycles, the mopeds. At least here in Miami, where I'm based out of, they don't need a driver's license, and they also don't need insurance to be able to drive and operate these vehicles. And it's disgusting. And I want to mention something personal as well. My husband, he recently had an accident, that an individual on a motorcycle had hit him on the back. And my husband had gotten out of his car to check on him and say, are you okay? Because he was bleeding and everything. And once he decided to call the police, the man got back on his motorcycle and fled. And to this day, we have been unable to determine exactly, who he is. But there's a lot of suspicion that we've been working with the police. There's an investigation out there that he stole this motorcycle. He wasn't even the owner of it. There was no insurance tied to him, and this whole mess. And that's just unfortunately one of many things that are happening almost on a daily basis in cities like Miami, because here in Miami, we're being afflicted as well by a lot of these illegal migrants. And a lot of them are causing accidents all the time. They're getting on Uber Eats, and sometimes I'll get a delivery and it says, some woman's name, and then it's not even a woman, it's a man that's bringing me my food. And so they use a lot of these loopholes to, I guess in one hand sustain themselves, but on the other hand, they're committing a lot of fraud. It's a lot of exposure to continue committing crimes that we probably don't even know that we're scratching the surface of. And these are examples that we only see are being reported in the news. But I really do think, and it's scary to me, that there's a lot more crimes and criminals just out on the streets every single day in all of our cities and right in our neighborhoods that are making our lives a lot more difficult to deal with.
Yeah. What's funny is that everyone feels the crime increasing, but if you ask the Democrats or the Biden administration, they'll feed you this line about how, oh no, if you look at the numbers, crimes are going down across the country. Well, you want to know why? Speaking of like loopholes or whatever you want to call this, it's because the system on which all of these police departments report their crimes sort of to like the federal government or whoever keeps track of that in Washington, D.C., they made them shift to a completely different system a couple of years ago. And there are a lot of these police departments that couldn't make the transition because their technology couldn't keep up. They couldn't update their software in the specific precincts or whatever it might be. So you have a whole host of police departments that are just not even reporting the crimes that they're seeing committed on a daily basis. Do not believe the numbers out there, ladies and gentlemen. Those numbers are a lie, and you can feel that those numbers are a lie. Before we go, Stephanie, I just want to touch on this really quickly, just to bring it full circle back to old Joe. Bless his little heart. We say that in the South, and everybody in North Carolina knows what that means. That's where I grew up. The Huffington Post had an opinion piece out, and the individual who wrote the piece suggested that the Biden campaign, in order to smooth out Biden's gaffes, Stephanie, should just go ahead and use AI deepfakes to make sure that the American people could get the message from Biden, since he himself could not deliver it. Here's what he says. Joe Biden is old and has had a lifelong stutter. Okay, that's the excuse we're continuing to go with. Fine. He acknowledged in a fiery rally following his debate performance, I might not walk as easily or talk as smoothly as I used to. These AI-enhanced videos could ensure that the public does not make decisions about the future of our democracy based on an inconveniently timed cough, stray stutter, or healthy but hobbled walk, Stephanie. Oh my God. They're now like, you know what? He can't do it on his own. Let's just make fake videos of Joe Biden to feed to the American people. What?
Yeah, I mean, it's just infuriating and it's unethical. And I can't believe somebody would even suggest that out loud and that it made it to print. I mean, it's totally astounding that they would want to cover up Biden's mental decline. And you don't have to, be an expert here. You just look back at a medical expert. You just look back at videos from a few years ago, or even back in 2020, how different he was to how he is today. And again, I feel bad for Biden, dementia, if that's what he has, not a doctor, but, there's signs of it. I feel bad for him, but just because you feel bad for somebody doesn't mean they should run the country. So again, I mean, these leftists who are just in it with Biden, no matter what, they think that there is a cabal or something that's running the country and they like where it's going. I mean, it's kind of crazy to think that they like where it's going, but, it is what it is.
I mean, Vianca, take us home here. I don't know how anyone in their right mind could, in good conscience, suggest that the best way forward here would be to keep someone who clearly doesn't have the capacity for this job in this job. Fake it till you make it. Okay, that's one thing. Fake it because you can't do it. Totally different animal.
And it's the Huffington Post. I mean, these are the same people that wrote an article saying that based on the Supreme Court ruling on immunity, that all of a sudden, like, Joe Biden had the right to assassinate a former president. I mean, these people are ridiculous. They're ridiculous. I think there's no bigger conspiracy theories being propagated out there than from super liberal, media sources just like Huffington Post. And it's crazy because this is what contributes to our constant division in this country. It's really sad. But yeah, I mean, at this point, I think that what we should just do is roll with the punches. We should just continue basking in the glory of the situation that was completely unwanted, clearly, and unintended. But, they're trying to turn off all these fires that are continuing to pop up. And I think that we should just, we're here for it. We should just laugh along for the ride because they're doing the job for us at this point. I mean, we should continue to do the job, right? Because you never know. And the elections are still a couple of months away, but they're really helping us. And if they don't want to get rid of him and they don't want to put Kamala in his place, but even if they did, even if it ends up being Kamala, it's still a really, really, it's not going to be a difficult thing to beat them because she's very unpopular. This is a woman that also campaigned on reforming criminal justice, even though she was literally one of the people to wrongly imprison a lot of other individuals merely for marijuana possession, for instance. So, and they're just basically hypocritical individuals, and Joe Biden himself as well with the 1994 crime bill. But anyways, this is definitely not the Joe Biden from that 1994 crime bill, and I think everybody can see it. It's just that at this point, we got to let it play out and let the people continue to see it, and hopefully we'll see a red wave come November.
Yeah, Lara, all of these so-called journalists and the talking heads literally a couple weeks ago were just telling us that anything that made Joe Biden look bad, even if it was like on live television, was a cheap fake. Now some of them, I mean, they just have so much egg on their face because now some of them are having to admit the obvious because 50 million or more people watched the debate. And as I predicted, it was live and there was nothing they could do to cover up for it. And, we've heard all these excuses over the past week or so. Biden was sick. He had a flu or COVID, but he wasn't really sure.
Traveling.
So he needed to take a COVID test. But by the way, these are the same people that told us like COVID was so bad and they would get mad at us when we would compare it to a bad flu. They also said he was tired from traveling. He thought the debate was unfair. I mean, the excuses just keep coming out. Again, it's not a one-time thing. If we were thriving and the economy was doing great and like, things were as good as they were under the Trump administration, people wouldn't care if he had a bad night. There wouldn't have to be these interviews to confirm, whether his mental acuity is there or not. And the fact, again, that we are even doing this is concerning.
Yes, there's so much concerning right now. All I know is we will not take anything for granted. We will not take our foot off the gas. We will continue to play like we are behind all the way until the very last second, because that is how we do things on this side of the aisle. And I believe, look, anything is possible right now. Whenever you have people backed in a corner and they feel like they have nowhere to go, that's when the crazy stuff starts coming out. That's when they're liable to do anything. All I know about Kamala Harris is she dropped out of running for president before her own home state of California voted. She dropped out before Marianne Williamson with the crystals and all that jazz, which, don't get me wrong, love that. I'm here for that all day long. Just keep that in mind as we're considering whether or not Kamala Harris is actually a viable candidate for the Democrats. It's a disaster over there, but Vianca, you're right. We keep focused, we keep fighting, we keep doing what we know, and we keep talking to the American people about what Donald Trump did while he was president, what he will do when he's president again, and all day long. That's what I'm here for. So listen, I just want to say thank you guys. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Vianca, for joining us tonight. To everybody at home, as always, make sure you like, subscribe, share, and follow. And we'll see you back here next time for more of The Right View.
And I won't back down. Hey, baby, there ain't no easy way out.
Nothing is worse than being on a phone call that drops. Nothing is worse than trying to text someone and you can't reach them because your phone is out of service range. And nothing is worse than supporting these major corporations and companies who don't support us. That is why I love Patriot Mobile. They are America's only Christian conservative wireless network. They use every cell tower out there available to all networks so that they have the greatest 4G and 5G coverage nationwide, and they support the causes that are important to us as conservatives. If you go today to patriotmobile.com/Lara Trump and use the promo code Trump, you will get free activation today. Again, that is patriotmobile.com/Lara Trump. The promo code is Trump for free activation so that you can get a great cell plan and feel good about doing it.